When your ideal customer is visiting your world, they're going to your website, is it abundantly clear who you are and how you could help them? Are your various offers and courses very clear about how they are going to help me, what result they're going to get me, and is that appealing for your perfect and ideal customer? Hey everyone, welcome into the Online Course Show. I am Jacques Hopkins, and we have a good one for you here today. Shortly, I'll be joined by my guest, Michael Kilkelly, who has courses, or should I say, a course, a program in the architecture space. Now, full disclosure, Michael has been a part of my coaching programs for the past couple of years. So I've known him for a while, but when we first met, Michael was doing a lot of things right. I'll certainly say that, but he was struggling with this whole messaging and clarity thing. He had 18 different course offers, and it just wasn't clear when you would go to his website how he could best help you and which offer you should take. And what was happening is people were getting confused by how Michael could help them. They were getting confused by what offer they should take advantage of, and they were leaving, and he wasn't making the sale. And so by vastly simplifying, getting clear with his messaging, and really focusing on one core key main offer, he is making way more money today than he was back when he had 18 different offers out there. So in this conversation, we'll certainly go into more detail about that. We'll talk about how he runs live cohorts through his program and how that's been just an awesome business model for him, and he absolutely loves it. We talk about how he got started by just putting free, valuable content out there before trying to sell anything. He just, within his niche, started doing blog posts, articles many years ago, and that's how he built his audience. And that is the key to what's sustaining him today as well. And of course, many more great nuggets and words of wisdom. Before we get into the full conversation, let me tell you about Tela. Tela is a screen recording software like no other. As a course creator, you likely every now and then, or maybe all the time, you need to record your screen. But you know what's really cool is when you can record your screen and you on camera at the same time. And you know what's even cooler than all that, because a lot of software does that, is when you put all that together and it looks like just so well produced and so professional, and not just that canned template where you got the screen and you in a little bubble in the corner. You may need to see it for yourself to truly appreciate how cool it looks, but imagine if you could make videos like that yourself very, very easily. And Tela is what allows you to do that. If you want to try out Tela, you can do so for free. And then if you want to sign up for the paid program, you can get 30% off for life by going to tella.tv/OCG. That's TELLA.tv/OCG. And now here is the full conversation between myself and Michael Kilkelly of ArchSmarter.com. Hey, Michael, welcome to the Online Course Show.
Thanks, Jack. Happy to be here.
So we know each other a little bit, but for the sake of the audience, why don't you give them the quick rundown of your business and a little bit of how we got here?
Sure. So my name is Michael Kilkelly. I am trained as an architect and worked as an architect for a long time. And as I was being an architect, I realized, there's a lot of boring stuff that we have to do. And I ended up teaching myself how to program. And I learned how to program basically to make my job easier. And I started writing my own programs, automating a lot of the kind of CAD, computer-aided drafting, and building information modeling software that we use. And I did that for a while and ended up becoming kind of a consultant doing that type of work. So working with other architecture and engineering firms. And I did that for a number of years. And as part of that, I created my own kind of course business, teaching architects and engineers how to program. And right now, I did that independently for a while. And I actually had a client who hired me full-time to do that. And I still run my course business kind of on the side. But it's been through a number of different iterations. And in fact, that's how I got hooked up with you, Jacques, was listening to your podcast. And then also I joined your sort of course creator boot camp. It was it 2 years ago, a year ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago now. Yep.
2 years ago, yep. Which was a great experience. And then kind of the course that I launched during that has evolved over the years. and is now kind of a more of a course / community hybrid.
Yeah. So why is it that architects and engineers would need to learn how to program?
I was thinking about this today, and it's, anytime you see an architect in the movies or on TV, it's like they're sitting by themselves at a drafting board, they're drawing by hand, and they're coming up with these great ideas. And then magically, like, the building appears. What they don't show, because it's not terribly cinematic, is that, like, there's a lot of tedious work that goes into getting an idea, into drawings, into blueprints, and then actually built. So you don't see, like, the 50 or 60 other people who are slaving away on their computer creating drawings. And so I've worked on, some, particularly for large projects, you may have, 500, 600 sheets of drawings that describe the building, that the builder is then going to use to price and to, actually construct the building. So there's a lot of effort that goes into the drawings themselves. And even though we use software that's, 3D software is pretty advanced, there's still, at some point, someone's going to change the name of the bathrooms to toilet rooms or something like that. And somebody has to go through and change all of those rooms individually. So it's, there's a lot of tedious things like that, that have to get done in the course of a project. So I was usually the one who had to do it. And so that's why I was like, you know what? I don't want to sit here and make that one change 1,000 times. Maybe I can figure out a better way to do it. And
how did you come up with the name for your brand?
So yeah, my brand ArchSmarter. I was thinking about just, okay, can we be smart architects? Can we start to leverage technology better? Can we work more productively? And there's I don't want to say a tradition, but oftentimes for architects, like, you go to architecture school, a lot of the sort of mythology about it is, you're going to put in long hours, you're going to pull all-nighters, like, you're going to work a lot. And then when you get into the profession, there's some of that expectation is carried over. Like, okay, we'll pay you for 40 hours, but, you're going to work 70 because that's, your dedication to the craft and to the profession. And I was working for a firm, and I was working, doing those 60, 70-hour weeks. And my wife had just had a baby, so I had a little kid at home. I didn't really want to be working those kind of hours. And so in addition to having to do all these tedious tasks that I really didn't want to do, I didn't want to be putting in as much time. So, I started looking into productivity, automation, partly as a quality of life issue. Like, I wanted a better quality of life. And so I started my website, ArchSmarter, as a way to, promote a different way of working, for architects.
So I recently came across a concept when you're naming something. I think it's called the Scratch or Smile framework, something like that, where it's like when you have a name. Have you heard of this?
I haven't heard of this. No.
When you have a name of something, it should make you smile and not scratch your head. And I've always loved your brand name. I think it's absolutely perfect, right? ArchSmarter. It helps, clearly helps, architects be smarter at what they're doing. So I definitely love that. Was it one of those situations where when you came up with the idea, you were like nervous when you went to search for the domain, like hoping it was available?
It's a good question, because I think I started the website maybe in 2013 or 2014. And I remember thinking, like, I wanted an action word, like, I wanted it to be, evoke emotion, or, like, you need to do something. Like, I wanted it to get towards working better, ArchSmarter. And I don't remember exactly how I came up with it, but then when I search and I'm like, oh, great, it's available, so it was fortunate that way that it was available. Yeah. Like, I had the idea. That was the only idea I had. And then the domain was available. So it kind of very nicely.
Yeah, for sure. When I got the idea for mine, I went to namecheap.com to see if it was available, and it was piano in 30 days, and it wasn't available. And I was like, oh no. So that's where we started. And then, pretty much any other day was available, and it just kind of worked out to be 21 days. But I had that experience where I was all excited and it wasn't available.
And it's good that like 21 is better than 30 because it's even, shorter time frame. So that's pretty good.
Shorter time frame. Yeah. And there's the whole, 21 days to form a habit. It worked out, but yeah. All right. So when people are starting, they can be very intimidated by the whole audience building piece, right? Mm-hmm. One of the big mistakes is you create a brand, and then you immediately create the course. But you either, forget about actually building an audience, or you are intimidated by it, or you don't know how to do it, right? How did you in the early days go about trying to get your name out there and building an audience?
So it's funny, when I started the website, I like to kind of do things in public, and I'm very deadline driven. Like I need a deadline, and I think that's part of being an architect, because we're always working on projects and there's always a deadline. So I was going to speak at a conference, which it was Autodesk University, which is a big conference for like architectural software. And I was giving a presentation, and at the very end, I think it was even the night before the presentation, I'm like, I wanted to launch this website. I wanted to start my blog. So I pretty much came up with like the logo, and, had one screen, and I put up one page I had bought the domain at this point, but I put up one page kind of as a coming soon. So when I finished my presentation, the last slide was like, hey, this is coming in a couple months. Here's my website. And so I knew then I had to start creating some content. And so I didn't worry too much about at that stage. Like I just wanted to start writing, and I just wanted to basically put out, again, productivity tutorials, things related to, working smarter for architects. So I didn't worry too much about, what everything looked like. So I had a real bad logo. I had a really bad website, but I just started writing articles and putting them up there and seeing what worked as far as the audience goes. And I don't know at that point if I even had a mailing list. I think the mailing list kind of came soon after. And really, I used all of that, like the pressure from the conference. Okay, now I have to build the website. Now I have the website. Now I put up a mailing list. So now I have to, mail to my audience, such as it was at that point, another blog post that I was going to write. Okay, so I have 2 weeks now. I need to write another blog post so then I can email my audience. So I had like the pieces in place, but it was really that first year and a half was really all about sort of content creation and audience building, but doing it all sort of hand in hand. And I was capturing, email subscribers, as I was going along. And then I didn't really have a sort of curatorial take other than I had my domain that I was working within, but I was writing articles about software. I was writing articles about time management, a lot of different things related to, the overall concept of ArchSmarter. But it wasn't super focused at that point.
People don't like to, delay gratification, right? We want quick results. And so having to spend a lot of effort and create those articles, I'm guessing you're not making much money that first year. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, right?
I was doing consulting. So I was working, I was working independently. I had been living in California, and then, at that point we had two small kids, and we wanted to move back to the East Coast, where my wife and I are originally from. And so I ended up, we made the move, but I had a good relationship with my previous employer. So I stayed with them, and I did consulting, for them. So I was, living in Connecticut and then, working sort of remotely. This was around 2012, 2013, for my previous employer as a consultant. So that was good. That was giving me income, but I had always wanted to grow that business. I wanted to consult for other architecture engineering firms. And then I had also thought, well, maybe at some point I'll do a course. I could do some quote, passive income as well. So the website, the blogging, that all fed into, this idea of growing ArchSmarter. But it was going to take time. That was the one thing I knew. So I did have a little bit of time because I had ink consulting coming in.
So courses were on your radar, but it wasn't, it sounds like it wasn't necessarily the main, like the main end goal. You were starting this brand and this business and putting out free content as a way to, I don't know if influencer is the right word, but start making a brand and name for yourself out there in the world for the purpose of opportunity.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Some sort of opportunity, courses being one of them, but other opportunities as well.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's definitely it.
What motivated you to keep going? Because one thing people do is they'll take the advice of content marketing, put out content, and sometimes it takes time, right? And you're putting, in your case, you're writing blog articles and you're emailing them out. What was motivating you to keep going? Were you getting some early positive feedback?
I was getting feedback. I was having, regular subscribers, and to be honest, I enjoyed like the content creation process. I liked writing. So that helps, that helps kind of guide you along. And I was getting inquiries on the consulting side, like, hey, can you help us out with this? People would email me. I got some traction early on, which I think helped motivate me. But yeah, it was, I'd say at least, a year. I think it was 18 months or so before I launched my first course. So it was there was a good lead up to that.
And then today, I'm on your website now, and you've got lots of articles. It would like SEO, like organic search, is that the number one people are finding you today?
Yeah, I don't do any paid ads or anything like that. Yep.
And no other content marketing channels, social media, YouTube.
I do have, I have a YouTube channel, but it's old and I don't publish to it regularly. That's on my to-do list for this year. But yeah, I mean, one thing is I'm in a very narrow niche, which is good. There's not a lot of competition, and I tend to know the people like who are also within my niche. So that definitely helps. And then even within it, it is a narrow niche, and then I've niched it down even further. So again, it is useful, and it's not I've found like there's not a lot of content out there specific to my content. And that really helps.
Sure. How big is your email list at this point?
At about 15,000.
15,000.
And
awesome.
I do periodically, like I'll purge it. I'm due to purge it again, just, people don't open. So typically I'll do that. Once I get around 15,000, I'll purge it, and it seems to get down to about 10,000, and then I'll build it back up. So that's kind of the, where it seems to be at right now.
Okay. So then when we first met a couple of years ago, I was very impressed by your business, loved the brand name, loved what you were doing. But if I remember correctly, I think you had a lot of offers, right? A lot of courses, a lot of offers. Yep. It was, you talk about how specific your niche is today, but I think you were trying to, hit a lot of different things. Do I have that right?
Oh, that's absolutely right. Yeah. When I first came into your boot camp, I had 18 courses. So what I found out, like I did that first course, and I actually I really enjoyed creating courses, and I liked creating them, but I didn't like always sort of, building a whole marketing apparatus around it. So I would create a course, I would launch it, it would do well. And then a couple months later, rather than relaunching the course, I'd be like, oh, I just want to do a new course. Like I was kind of like, oh, let's do something new. And so I would create a new course, and then I would create a new course, and I started creating mini courses. So then all of a sudden, that I had 18 courses. Again, they're all within my niche, and my niche in particular deals with a software platform called Revit, which is building information modeling. So architects, engineers use Revit to create 3D models of buildings, and then from those models, we're able to generate our construction drawings from them. And it's used a real lot in the U.S., probably, and a lot in Europe and elsewhere in the world as well. So it is sort of the predominant software that gets used, but there are other ones out there as well. But I was creating all these various different Revit courses. The problem is, the technology changes every year. They come out with a new version, and it's like, okay, soon, it's been a year or so since I launched this course. I didn't want to redo the course, so I would just launch another course. Jacques, I've got 18 courses. I'm not quite sure, what to do with them all. And that was my big dilemma when we first met up.
Yeah, it felt like browsing around your site. If I was putting myself in the shoes of somebody visiting your site, there was a lot of great information, but there was too many choices, and it wasn't as clear as the best way that you could help me. And so how did you go about that process of deciding what to start eliminating?
It was funny because I remember when we were talking, it was like, okay, can I package these courses up, or what can I do? And at that time I had a course that was a few years old, and I would get a lot of inquiries out of the blue, like, hey, are you going to update this particular course? And the course was called Mastering Revit Macros, which was about writing or coding macros for the Revit software. And I had done it a while ago. I'm like, I don't really want to do that again, but I'm getting a lot of interest. Or people would ask me, oh, hey, can you write a course about programming, like plugins for Revit? And I'm like, well, I don't have a course, but it was happening enough. Like every couple of weeks I would get an email like that, and it's like, well, maybe I should do a course like this. And again, I had some other offers out there that I just wasn't that excited about. And in thinking, what am I going to do with all these courses? When I was in your boot camp, I'm like, well, maybe I should just do a new course, but I should really focus on it. And then that was kind of the decision. It's like, okay, I'm going to, not try to reorganize what I already have. I'm going to sort of double down on this other course.
And so, now today, how many different offers do you have? One offer.
Yeah, I have an actual, like a software, a plugin that I sell of my own. And then I have, my, what it's called the Revit Add-in Academy is like my other offer. And there are different sort of points of entry into it. But it is a learning community, and it's sort of subscription based.
So how does the subscription work?
I offer like 3 levels. So you can buy a year subscription. You can buy a 6-month, or you can get a quarterly, so 3-month subscription. And there's, different sort of price breakdowns for each. Right now for the year, I sell that for $1,700 US. And then 6-month is $1,000. And then I do 500, roughly for the quarter. And I do offer like cohorts. I've been doing sort of cohort based courses recently, and that I will bring in a cohort into the academy through my, what's called the Revit Add-in Bootcamp. So for kind of new programmers who want to start out, they'll come into the academy through the bootcamp. And the way I do the pricing on that is when I was selling that as a standalone course, I was selling, for $997 or something like that. So I keep that pricing, but now they join the academy. The boot camp happens inside the academy, and they get 6 months access to it. So I'm selling the course, but it's really giving them access to the academy for a time period.
So let me make sure I'm understanding this. You've got something called the Revit Add-in Bootcamp, and you've got the Revit Add-in Academy. And so can you get into the academy without first signing up for the bootcamp?
And I would have to kind of vet you, or if I do have an application process that somebody would go through. So I would want to make sure that they were a somewhat experienced programmer before they came in to the academy. And it's really like the academy is kind of the container. So it's built on Circle. It's a community, but I have courses within the academy, one of which is the boot camp. So, when you join the boot camp, that's like the introductory, here's how you program, here's all the tools you're going to need. We go through kind of a 9-week boot camp to get them. And when they finish, then I have intermediate and more advanced courses that they can take. I've been sort of dialing it in. I switched to Circle over the summer, so I'm like still working out all the pieces to it. But it has, I've been offering, and I did a boot camp. I did 2 boot camps in the Circle site, and then I've also done an intermediate class as well. So I have had new people come into the academy through this intermediate course.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely want to talk to you about the delivery tech and whatnot. And I know you're using Circle now, but the boot camp, you just mentioned that if somebody goes straight to the academy, they can go to the courses, and the boot camp is one of those courses. But I was under the impression the boot camp was live. Is there a live and pre-recorded version?
Yeah, there is. So when I did it originally, and again, I'm on my 6th. I've done 6 cohorts of the boot camp. The first time I did it, it was all live. So we would have, it was set up. We'd have a live class that was done on Zoom, and then it was recorded and then like hosted on when I first did it, when I was as part of your boot camp, Jacques, I was using Thinkific for hosting all the course content. And then I was doing Zoom for our recorded sessions. And I think I was using Slack or something like that for kind of the community piece to it. I've refined it, and then I switched to Kajabi, and I was doing everything on Kajabi. And then I had issues about the Kajabi community. And so I moved it to Circle. But the way I've done it now is I record the course piece is pre-recorded, but it gets dropped. Like I'll drip it at certain time periods. And then I have live components as well. So there's like a Q&A every week I'll do as a live component for students within that class. And then I'll do a review session kind of at the end of each lesson, which will also be live. So it's kind of a hybrid mix.
Yeah, but you mentioned cohort. So you're getting every couple of months, you're getting a group of people together to go through this all together with you at the same time.
Yeah. And what I found, so doing, having done courses for a while, and having done, had sold a lot of my courses previously were pre-recorded. You go to Thinkific, you buy the course, you have access to it, you consume it however you want. I enjoyed making the courses, but I found that I missed the connection with the students. So there was a part of me that even though I'd done the work and I put it into the course, I didn't have a connection to the student. And I felt, not that I felt bad selling it, but I couldn't really get behind it because I didn't know if they were going to get the outcome. I didn't have a good sense. I knew the course was good, but there was no mechanism to, make them take the course. And for me, sort of as the teacher, it just didn't feel right necessarily. And I had tried some cohort courses before, and I liked the format because I got to know everybody. And I could kind of check in on them and see how they were doing. Do you have any questions? So it was a lot more satisfying using a cohort model. So the issue is it takes time. It doesn't necessarily scale. But what I also found that I liked is there is sort of built-in scarcity. Like the class starts on this date, I don't have to put pressure on you. You either join it or you don't, but we're starting right here. And I really liked that on the marketing side because that's it. That's when we're going to start. And then when is the next one? Well, maybe it's in a couple months or longer. But I liked how the scarcity tied directly into the marketing, and it was authentic because we're going to start on, I have an orientation session starting next Monday. So if you want to join now. And that felt good to me as far as marketing goes.
Yeah, it's that's one of the best things about the cohort-based approach is that you've got extremely real built-in, urgency and scarcity. So, hey, it's going to start on this date, whether you're in it or not. So you've got to make a decision because we're starting, right? That's the urgency piece. And then are you limiting the amount of seats that are available for the cohorts?
I typically do, yeah. So I would limit it to 30 students.
30 seats. Okay.
Yep.
So each time you launch this boot camp, you've got, you're priced at around $1,000. You're saying, hey, only 30 seats available. So if you're willing to fulfill on that, that's a great model. Alex Hormozy has this sales to fulfillment continuum where, on one side, you've got easy to sell but hard to fulfill, and that's more of this live cohort based thing, where because of the inherent nature of teaching it live, it makes it easier to sell, because they know they're going to get access to you, they know they're going through it with other people, and then you've got the urgency and scarcity, but then you've got more to do on the fulfillment side. On the other side of that continuum is harder to sell but easier to fulfill, and that's the more traditional course model. And I think fewer people than should try what you're doing. I think it's a great way to start because it's easier to sell, and you've found that, not only that, but you really enjoy this model as well. So you've made it a part of your business model going forward.
Right. And one thing I like to do too is I like to sell it before I actually do the work. So using a cohort, and I'm doing an intermediate course right now where all I needed to do, I needed a sales page and I needed an outline of what I was going to cover in the course. So this course, it's 9 weeks. So it's 4 modules. Like I recorded, by module 3, video today, and so I'm developing the course as I go through. And what's worked out great with for my boot camp is that I've recorded all the video, the skill, the teaching piece. So when I run a new cohort, I just have to all I show up for are the live sessions, which I think is where the value is. And I just drip out kind of the skill, like the classroom piece. And so students get access to that. They can watch it. Once I release the video, they can watch it on their own time. And then we'll get together real time for, Q&A sessions and review sessions. So it's sort of it's like that flipped classroom model. And it works out. I find it's worked out really, really good for me. So, the more time, like doing another boot camp isn't that much. I just need to schedule when my live sessions are, and I show up for those, and it's Q&A. And so I don't have to do a lot of prep. Like the work has been done as far as structuring and organizing the course and creating the sort of pre-recorded pieces. So it
sounds like the majority of your revenue is coming from these boot camps, and then you do have the continuity program as well. They get access to that, and then they want to continue on in the academy.
Right.
Then you've got the pricing for that as well.
Yeah.
Talk me through what these launches look like, because that sounds like the key piece. How you're making money. So every few months you're launching these cohorts. What are you doing? Is it just to your email list? You're sending out emails? Walk me through the launches.
It's a little bit of both. So I'll do a webinar, like a free webinar, and I'll do a live webinar, and I will announce that through my mailing list. And then, what I like to do is just sort of narrow down the funnel. I want to get people into the webinar, and then they've indicated they're interested. Then I'll start pitching the course launch. And I'll usually do it like 3 weeks before I'm going to start the cohort. I will plan a webinar, run the webinar, and then I'll kind of market the webinar. After that's finished, then I'll start going through I'll market the new course the new cohort to people who attended the webinar. And I'll make some broadcasts as well to my main mailing list. But that's worked out pretty well.
Do you ever feel like you're just marketing to the same people? Like, do you ever worry you're not going to be able to get new people in because they've already seen this offer?
Yeah, and that's I try to vary the webinar a little bit, but it's sort of variations of a theme. That's one issue I'm dealing with now, is just building my audience more. So I've been looking at YouTube or different types of content to attract new people in. So that is a concern. But I've been consistent, in terms of my first 2 cohorts, I filled them, no problem. I've noticed that the cohorts have been dropping in size, so I'm not getting a full 30, but I can definitely get about 20 people for each subsequent cohort. So, but long term, I would, I do need to up my efforts on the content side, leading to, new subscribers, leading to new potential cohort members.
So if you could talk to me a little bit about your webinar, because I've used you as a case study here and there with webinars because I know for a little bit you would just kind of teach for an hour and then ask for the sale, and then you switch to a more Russell Brunson-y model, right? Where you've got kind of, I don't know if you call them secrets, but it's not just straight teaching. It's more of perspective shifts for people, right? Can you talk about some of those changes you made in your webinar?
Yeah, I had done webinars, and prior to launching the Revit Add-in Academy, I would just randomly do a webinar on a topic. It may or may not be tied to an actual, a pitch or a sales offer that was going out. And when I got into your bootcamp, Jacques, I started, okay, I need to look at this, a little bit more seriously. And we worked a lot through, really crafting a webinar so that it leads or sort of naturally into a sale. And that here is the problem, I can help you solve it. And here is the thing that will solve it. And so that was really eye-opening to me to kind of step through what it might be like for a prospective student to, identify with the problems as I was highlighting them, and then, let me lead them to that solution. And so, my original approach was like, I'm just going to teach you a bunch of stuff. Hopefully you like how I teach. And then, oh, by the way, here's a product, as opposed to really thinking about, okay, how can I teach, but also, satisfy my sales goals as well, in such a way that is authentic, but positioned in such a way that I will help you solve your problems. I understand what those problems are, and then here is a solution that I can offer you. So that really changed things for me, is taking that kind of approach. And so I do, for all my webinars, I use that similar sort of format, either secrets, or tips or something. And again, it doesn't feel super salesy, which is good.
Good. Yeah. I mean, the webinar you had before, I don't think it was ineffective, right?
Yeah.
Some people would buy and whatnot. But do you think that is it fair to say that the new version is more effective?
Yeah.
And do you think it's because your attendees on the first version felt like they got what they needed and they didn't need anything more? Do you think that's the reason?
I think that was it. It was like you solved my problem right here in this webinar, and I think as opposed to leading like, okay, here's some additional problems, and the solution being kind of the course sale. Like, I think sometimes when you're doing a straight teaching, it is good in terms of audience building, and it's good in terms of being able to demonstrate your ability to teach, but it's not always effective as a marketing effort. And I think that was really the switch for me, is looking at a webinar as really a marketing opportunity. It's not just about teaching a class, and doing it again in such a way that feels, natural and authentic. So that switch helped a lot.
Right. What I always say is that, like, by the time we get to the pitch at the end of our webinar, we need to have made them believe that, first of all, they can do this thing. And secondly, that, Michael and his program are the perfect way for me to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And so I think probably with the first version of your webinar, you probably were empowering people. You were getting people to say, I can do this, because you just taught them for an hour, but you probably weren't getting them to say yes to the second question, which is, I believe Michael and his program are the way for me to do it. You probably, the answer was probably, this, what I just learned in the past hour is how I can do this.
I'm going to go.
Whereas with yeah, right. And so you were probably getting people to say yes that just like really wanted to get that super deep dive with you. Whereas with the approach you're using now, it gets more people to say yes to that second question, where you're showing them what's possible, but they really need your program to get to that dream outcome. And they're not able to just scratch it with the hour they just spent with you.
Yeah. And I think too, articulating like, yes, you can do this on your own, but here's things you're going to run into. And if you want to do this, and I find this myself, and I think that's why I really, your bootcamp was great for me, because there was accountability built into it. And like, it wasn't I had to put some effort into it, but there was structure in place to make sure I do it. And I know like that works for me, like having a structure. So if I'm going to buy a course, I want to make sure, I'm not just consuming it, cause I've got other things to do. It's easy to like, I'll do something else rather than, work on this course. But if I have, set dates I'm going to meet and times to be and places to be, and there's expectations, it's just sort of human nature that's going to help me get the results I want. So I think in some ways for us as course creators, it's creating an environment where you can get those results. And that's through, having, again, I like the cohort. So having an appointment, like I need to meet at this time. And there is going to be expectations that, I need to have things done.
Yeah. I think everybody needs a different level of accountability. And I know you appreciate a high level of accountability, and I do as well. I recently went through Gretchen Rubin's The Four Tendencies. I don't know if you've heard of that. And do you know what type you are by chance?
I don't. I know vaguely about the different four tendencies, but I'm not sure. I haven't delved into it deep enough to know which one I am. Which one is yours?
Well, I'm what's called an obliger, which means that I meet outer expectations, but I don't meet inner expectations. And the obliger is the one that needs outside accountability the most. That's like her big message is, most people are actually obligers, but they're also the easiest to I don't know if fix is the right word, but to improve circumstances, because all you have to do is add in outside accountability. And so what that means is, if you, Michael, are expecting something from me, or I tell you I'm going to do something, well, I'm going to do that thing because I'm good at meeting outward expectations. But if I tell myself, oh, I'm going to wake up early, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to go, exercise, and I'm going to do that, but nobody else is holding me accountable, I'm really bad at following through on that. That's what an obliger is. It sounds like maybe you're the same.
Could be, yeah, yep.
Yeah. So I'm big, outside accountability is huge for me as well. So next, let's talk a little bit about tech. You brought up Circle, you've mentioned Kajabi and Thinkific. Talk to me about your tech platform as it stands today.
So right
or
now,
your tech stack.
My website is hosted on Kajabi, and I have a couple, like I said, I have a plugin that I offer for sale. So I do use Kajabi for kind of delivery of the plugin. And I did switch though, as far as like my course platform is now on Circle. And I made that switch over, just over the summer, I believe it was. Yeah. So
why?
I have been trying different combinations of tech. Like I've been kind of trying to tweak and find the right platform. I started initially on Thinkific, and that was great for just delivering kind of, self-guided courses, and that worked out fine. And then I started experimenting, doing some early like cohort classes. So I was using Thinkific and Slack and Zoom, and, a different combination. Kajabi I thought was going to be it, and it worked well. I actually used your template for Kajabi, and I liked that it had the community piece. And that was something that other platforms like Thinkific didn't have, and that's why I would, mix and match different community type platforms. But then Kajabi's changed their community platform, and that I ran. Let's see, I think I did 2 cohorts on the old Kajabi community, and then they switched to the new one, and it just wasn't well integrated. My issue was like, it wasn't sticky. Like people weren't using it. And, I really like to think particularly in my cohort classes, like we have our live times, you have content that you're going to consume on your time. And then we have, the community itself, that's all part of it. And they all need to work together. And the Kajabi community just wasn't, it was too separate from everything else, and it didn't tie together. And I was curious about Circle. I actually run I have like another community. It's a free community that I run, which is on Mighty Network. But there's certain things about Mighty Network I don't love. So I didn't want to I didn't want to move to that platform. So I'm like, let me try Circle and let's see how it goes. And it's worked out really well because I have all the courses or the course content is I use Vimeo, and so I just link Vimeo. Vimeo is hosting my video content, and then I'll just link in on the course pages to that, and then I have discussion areas and areas where students can showcase things they're working on. So it's given me that kind of stickiness that I've really been looking for, and it does feel like a community. I also like Circle will send out weekly emails like, hey, here's what's going on in Revit Add-in Academy. And so if students, have been busy with work and they're not able to participate, this is a good reminder to kind of re-engage people to come back. And that's like one big thing that I think school does this as well. But that was the one piece that I was really looking for, like just to get people re-engaged and spotlight what's going on. So I've been happy, like really happy. It's like every 6 months I think like, what tech should I look at now? And now I wonder, well, I have Kajabi, but I'm not really using a lot of the features. So do I think about moving, my site somewhere else? And do I want to use a different, I had been on ConvertKit for email marketing, and then I went to Kajabi. And now I'm like, well, maybe I should move my list again somewhere else. I don't know. So it keeps, it's good to sort of keeps things interesting. As long as you have a high tolerance for, moving your stuff around.
Yeah, that's true. The tech puzzle can be, it can be rewarding, and it can be frustrating as well. It's interesting. We haven't spoken much over the past few months, yet we've taken a pretty similar path with our fulfillment piece. And, I haven't really talked about school too much here on the podcast yet, but, when, maybe a year ago, 18 months ago, you mentioned using my Kajabi template for the fulfillment of your program. And that was before Kajabi launched their new community. And what they ended up doing.
It was great. Loved it.
Yeah, it was simple. Yeah. It was simple. I made it, for me, having your course and your community and your events calendar kind of all wrapped up in the same place. It seems like a no-brainer, but it's, not many people are actually doing it. And so when I switched to Kajabi, I made a template that did that. And I was very, very happy with how it turned out. And I started even selling that template, and you started using it. And it was great for a time, but they weren't continuing to update, improve, and support their old community. And instead, they went out and they bought a community company, Vibely. Yeah. It's awful.
I mean,
it's terrible.
I did a cohort, and we used it, but nobody used it. You know what I mean? Like, it was part of the course experience, but it wasn't getting used, and that was a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So because they weren't, because Kajabi went this path, and there were they still let me use the old community. They weren't forcing me to switch it over, but they just weren't updating it. And it, as more time passed, it was getting more and more outdated, lacked features, other things were passing them up. And so eventually I felt the pressure to upgrade mine to the new community about maybe 6 weeks ago. And it's really interesting. I wrote this word down. You said that it wasn't sticky. That's a great word for it. The word I've been using is that there was too much friction.
Sure. Yep.
For people to interact, find the things they needed. It started going downhill a little bit in terms of the level of conversations and interactions that were actually happening. People, I personally was repelled by it. I kind of stopped jumping in there and interacting for a time because there was too much friction, and it to use your word, it wasn't sticky. And so as I think that first version, the template that I had, it no longer worked with the new community, but I designed that and the simplicity of it based on school's design, SKOOL. I designed it based on their design. Because I also really enjoy having, most of my online course business in one place. And that's one of the reasons you originally moved to Kajabi, exactly. Right?
Yeah. And then that started to break apart. And then, now I think with Circle for me and school for you, like everything's integrated, and I go to one place, like I hang out in one place.
you hang out in one place, but you're still running a lot of the other pieces of your business in Kajabi, because circle, school, you can't do all those other pieces.
Right.
So I'm still a big fan of Kajabi and recommend it. And it's not always the right move to move your courses off of Kajabi. It's just that I don't like the direction they're going with this community piece. And so for my coaching program, we have moved that piece over to school, and it's been phenomenal. I've used Circle a little bit, but I can't recommend School highly enough, other than the fact that it's yet another piece of tech in the stack.
Yeah. And I feel like I've joined other like course/learning communities, that are on Circle and that are on School. And I feel like that's the direction things are moving in, like that. That's the expectation. And again, for me as the sort of course creator, that has been the most rewarding kind of course experience, has been, on Circle. I kind of came together. But I think that it's a similar framework where you have community, you have courses, you have events, they're integrated. And the platform really supports that and makes it sticky and easy to engage in, conversations.
Yeah. But you've still got a lot of other components of your business in Kajabi. So even if, say, you decided to go back to ConvertKit or another email service, well, they don't necessarily, they can't, have all your website or your order forms and so on. So
I haven't
I'm seeing
piece out yet.
Well, my recommendation would be just stay in Kajabi, because I think it does those other pieces well still. It's just, I'm always trying to stay on top of, the best experience for all these different things. And for years I was a ClickFunnels guy, and eventually, I'm big on courses, obviously, and they didn't make updates to their course platform. And it started falling behind. I used it for like 4 years. And in 4 years, all of their features for delivering a course never changed. And it was clear they weren't putting any emphasis on that. It was a really great funnel builder, but it wasn't a great place for me to run a lot of different pieces of my business. And so eventually, I saw that and I had to make a change. I tried WordPress, too many headaches, Kajabi served me really well and continues to serve me well, but not for the same purpose. And it's like, when did they announce the new community thing? Like 6 months ago, 8 months ago, something like that. And I just do not like the direction. I mean, you just look at it, like they have separate mobile apps. Like if you want your students to view courses, you got to download one Kajabi app. And if you want your students to go to the Kajabi community, you have to use another community mobile app. And it's like, what are you thinking? Like, this is all one thing, guys.
Right. And it should be, a uniformed experience, ideally. If what we're selling is a learning experience, ideally it's happening in one place.
So you liked the template, right? What made you want to move off of that and try the new Kajabi community?
Well, I actually created a new course in Kajabi. So I did my original boot camp, and then from there I created another sort of, next, like a level 2 course. And so as soon as I did that in Kajabi, it's like I couldn't use the old community. I had to, if I wanted to have a community component, it created the new Kajabi community with it. I was like, okay. I wasn't able to have the continuity with the old one.
They continue to let you run the old one, but you couldn't create new ones.
Yep. Yeah. So I did it once, and then I'm like, well, this isn't sustainable. This isn't going to work. This is exactly what Kajabi was great, because again, using your template, I had everything in one place, and then all of a sudden, it kind of broke that continuity. So then I started thinking, all right, I need to do something different.
So what's next for you going forward? You think you'll continue to run these boot camps and run the academy going forward, and maybe just try to drive a little more traffic into your ecosystem?
Yeah, I'm really interested in again, I've kind of doubled down on the niche within the niche, and it's really just trying to grow the community from here. So I've been filling out like within the academy itself. I ideally want to have kind of 4 courses. So you have the boot camp for beginners. I'm doing an intermediate course right now. I have a course in there as well, which deals with user interfaces. So if you want to create, user interfaces for your plugins, and then I'm planning to do a more advanced course. And I feel like that's a good, there's enough content there to be able to take somebody from a total beginner to, pretty experienced plugin creator. So I'm getting there as far as the content goes, and then simultaneously trying to grow membership, bring people in the boot camp and kind of keep them in the academy there on it. So it's good. I mean, there's a lot of different challenges within each of it, but I feel like I've sort of hit on, after a number of different years trying different things, at least for right now, I feel like I have the right kind of solution for people who want to learn how to program. So it's going to be really just working out, fine tuning the details, but I'm really happy with the course and the course experience.
Good. So lastly, Michael, what advice do you have for more beginner course creators? Somebody's coming to you, Michael, I love what you've done within the architecture space. I'd like to do something similar. What advice do you have for that type of person?
I would say, like we talked about friction, like remove as much friction as you can. What I really liked in your bootcamp, Jacques, was this, we focused a lot on, getting that webinar, like getting the webinar down. Like the course, I think you obviously need an idea for a course, but I'm a big fan of sell it before you make it. Like don't spend all your effort on the course itself. Like figure out how you're going to market it, figure out, what are you going to use a webinar or are you going to use, content, like get that piece. And then do sort of, live cohorts are great because there's not a lot of friction between, your idea and actually delivering the course. You can do that kind of in real time and build it. And what I found for me is I would always, survey my students at the end, and I made changes. I've made every subsequent boot camp, even though the content has changed, like the format has changed, based on student feedback. And so, if you put all this effort in and here's my course and it's done, before you sell it, like you're not going to want to go back and change it. So you can really fine tune it and think of it too as, it's a product that you're going to want to tweak, and go on. So, remove as much friction as you can and start small. Maybe it's just a handful of students in a live cohort on Zoom, and grow it from there.
Great advice. All right, Michael from ArchSmarter.com. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Jacques. It's been fun.
All right, that's a wrap on that full conversation. I owe Michael a thanks for coming on, but I also owe him an apology. Listen to this. Right before we started recording, my wife comes in and she looked like a ghost. She could barely utter a word. She opened my door. She goes, "Snake." Turns out she was out in the garden doing a little yard work, and there were some noises happening. And within just a couple of feet of her was a very, very large and venomous snake, and she came running inside. Normally, she's very good about respecting my recording time and whatnot, but I don't blame her at all for breaking that this time. So I went outside and I braved the beast and was able to take care of the problem. I'll just put it at that. But she was not exaggerating. It was probably 5 feet long, I'd have to say, pretty thick, definitely venomous. Very scary, but we took care of it. Not something I see around my house too often. So if you did notice anything different about my demeanor in this interview with Michael, that might have been it, because that happened right before we actually started recording. But the show, of course, must go on. So thank you again to Michael, and sorry again to him for having to delay. We were chatting, and I said, "Hey, I'll be right back," and so it took 10 or 15 minutes to come back and then actually start the interview. Thank you out there as well for listening here to another episode. This has been episode 214 of the Online Course Show. So that means you can find the links and show notes we talked about today by going to oc.show/214. And in the last episode, I told you about my new weekly newsletter that is free, that if you're not on the list, you should go sign up for. And I'm going to tell you about it here again. So if you want one actionable tip for your online course business to your inbox every Friday for free from me, then all you got to do is head to theonlinecourseguy.com. You'll see a spot right at the top to enter your email address, and you'll be subscribed to that list. It's free. People are loving it. It's valuable, and it's actionable. You can plug that into your business, whether you're getting started or you are looking to scale your online course business as well. So check that out. It's called Jacques' Journal. Once again, theonlinecourseguy.com. Thanks for tuning in to yet another episode. Remember to take action on the things that you are hearing and learning. Go implement them in your business. I'm rooting for you. Take care.